Well, we should start with my mother's side of the family.
Go ahead.
And let me see, my mother was born in Glens Falls, Pennsylvania. And she was, her parents were born in Lithuania. And they moved to Massachusetts. And that's where my mother met my father. And he was born in Poland. In, let me see, what year was my dad born? In 18. My grandfather was born in 1859, and my father, oh my goodness, time flies. Well, anyway, they were, my father came over to this country when he was 16 years old. In fact, when they were on their ship, they saw the Titanic as they were going into the harbor. And
Going into what harbor?
the English Channel. English Channel. They've left out of Hamburg, Germany, and the Titanic left out of England.
You know what ship he was on?
Oh, I just can't remember the name of it.
But it went from Hamburg to New York? Is that,
Yes, from Hamburg to New York.
You know what year it was?
That was 1912, April of 1912, the year the Titanic
Right.
was going.
Right.
And when they reached New York after 3 weeks on the water,
He was on the Victoria. Or the
Victoria.
Victory. Was it Victoria.
Victoria, that's right. Because we tried to look it up on the Ellis Island, on the immigrants that were coming in from different parts of the country in the U.S. We couldn't figure out the Victoria though.
Where was he from?
They were from Poland, Vilna, Poland.
Vilnia?
Vilna, Poland. Yeah.
That's a city, is it?
Yes, that was part of Lithuania, and it was on the border there. And so the Polish said that they were Poland, and the Lithuanians said that they're Lithuanian, and I think they both were from about the same area. They were close together, so I don't know how.
Wasn't it a city, town of Kovno? Kovno?
There's Kovno, yeah, Kovno.
What did the family do for a living, do you know?
My grandfather was worked for this. Well, he owned a plantation, and my grandfather worked for him on the farm. He used to take care of his horses and everything. Then when my father got to be a teenager, he got to be a teenager, he went to help my grandfather work on the farm too. And so they had, they used to have the shares, that's what it was. They were the sharecroppers. And so my father used to made friends with the boss, and I guess my father was quite a quite a kid. So he was so good to my father that he would give him candy, and he would buy him a present of a shirt or something like that. And my father was beginning to get spoiled. He was the only boy in a family of 7 sisters, so he got all the attention. So anyway, after they stopped working for the man, the big boss there, they decided they were going to come to England. To Massachusetts. My grandfather came first with one of his daughters, and then 2 or 3 years later, my father and my grandmother and his other sisters, they left together. But they had to have a place to come to, because they already had work and they had a place to live. So there was no handouts. There was no help of anyone. What they got, they earned. And they had to work hard. And they finally bought this farm, and they raised onions on it. And my grandfather went to work on the railroad as and he was earning, I think, $5 a week in the beginning, and that was good money that day. And they made good money raising the onions. And my father, by that time, he was a teenager, so he learned some English, and he went to 2 grades. And he learned enough English, so he decided that he wasn't going to be a farmer. He joined the army. World War I broke out. So he went to Fort Benning, Georgia, and he signed up for the army, and that's where he got his training. And he was 19 years old when he went in the service. He was in training for 3 months, and then they shipped him over to France. And he says, I just came from there, why should I have to go back again? He wasn't very happy. He thought that they were going to keep him in the States, but instead they shipped him over, and he fought in France.
What motivated the family to come to the United States?
Well, the Russians were killing people on the streets, because my grandmother said she saw a Russian soldier stab a baby while the baby was in like a rocker, and the mother was working out in the field. They used to bring the babies out in the field with them, and so the Russian killed the baby. And when my grandmother saw all the violence that was going on in Russia, and the Tsar was, who was it? I forget his name now.
Nicholas.
Was it Nicholas? And the people were afraid. They were afraid for their lives, so they decided that they better just drop everything and go. And when my grandmother was still in Europe, she used to have a little, like a kindergarten group, where she used to teach these little children, their prayers, and teach them the language, and she was a little teacher. And she had her books and everything. When the Russian soldiers came and saw that she had this little class that was teaching these little children, they burned all her books. They took everything away from her. And so she couldn't do it anymore. And then she acquired some more books, and she hid them in the barn where they couldn't find them. Every night she'd hide her books in the barn so they wouldn't burn them. So it was difficult, and that's just why they left Poland.
What language did they speak in?
They were speaking Polish.
Okay.
Yeah, Polish. And they were very strong people. They were healthy, and they all came over on the boat and on that ship. It was a violent storm. They hit a violent storm, and there was so much sickness and everything. And by the time they got to New York, they had to be examined to make sure that they were healthy. Otherwise, they weren't allowed to get off the ship. So anyway, they were all tested, and they all seemed okay. So they finally, by train, they got in from New York. They went by train into Montague, Massachusetts, and that's just where the farm was, only about a half a mile from the train station. So that was perfect for them. They just walked right out and walked in the back, half a mile into their back door. And
How did they know to go to Montague?
well, my grandfather came first with his daughter, because they had relatives over here first.
Okay.
So as long as they had the relative, they said that's an opportunity for them to come too. So this is what they did. After they saw so much bloodshed and everything in Poland, they decided they would come. So they raised onions and they made a go of the farm, and it was good.
Were they religious people?
Oh yes, yes, yes. Horse and buggy. I went. I was christened. I was baptized. In fact, I was born. They lived in this creamery. It's called a creamery because they used to deliver cream to this one building, and down in the basement they used to make butter, and they had the whole upstairs to live in, and the other people that owned the creamery, they used to make the butter and send it out, send it to the stores and sell it locally.
Were they Catholic? Is that what the
Yes,
religion
they
was?
were Catholic, and when my father and mother got together, they met in Montague too. My father and my mother met together in Montague. They decided they were going to get married, and so they did. And my father came home from the service with a $200 bonus. That was a lot of money in those days. And my mother was only 16 years old when they married, and they used that $200 to buy their own home. So they bought the creamery, and that's where they were married. They were married May 16, 1920, and they had a party in the orchards, and all the apple blossoms were in bloom. It was my father's favorite song. I'll be with you in apple blossom time. That was his favorite song, and
I thought it was Shupai Shupai.
yeah. And then the following year, Mary was born, and then in 22. And I was born in the following year, 23. And then we had a little brother, little Charles, and he was born a year after I was, but he only lived 3 months. And I remember his funeral. He was waked at the house, and I was only 2 years old. He was waked at the house, and I remember people coming to the house, their horse and buggy, and their buggy were in the front yard, and I was so excited they were having company, so I ran down the path, and I fell, and my white dress got all grass stains on it. And I remember I was stood up, and I picked myself up, and I was crying, and I ran underneath the apple tree, and underneath the tree, and I was crying, and somebody brought me over into the house, and that's all I remember. And then 2 years later, we moved out of there onto this old Indian fort about a mile from where we lived, and my sister and I were sitting in the back of this wagon packed with furniture and horse-drawn. And we're sitting in the back, and all we could see was these two wheels going around and around, picking up the fine sand, and it seemed like such a long, long trip, and all it was 1 mile. And it seemed like we were going for half a day. And
So did your dad operate a creamery then? Is that what he was doing most of his life?
yeah, they operated the creamery, and then after they sold that out, and they went and bought this other building. And then my father went to work for the International Paper Company in Turner's Falls.
Doing what?
He was running machinery. They used to take all the rags, mash up all the rags, and make paper out of them. Mm. And then he was driving the truck. He got his driver's license. He was driving the truck, and from then on, he was just he always worked outside the house. So my grandmother lived with us, and they ran the farm. My mother was staying home with us children. And then she was young. My grandmother couldn't go out in the field anymore, so my mother would go out in the field and work, and my grandmother stayed with us, took care of us children. She taught us our prayer, and she taught us how to cook and how to be.
What, growing up, what was your favorite foods? What kind of foods did you eat back then?
Oh, they used to make all the pierogies. My grandmother made some wonderful noodles.
Homemade noodles?
Homemade noodles. I remember her making the dough and then rolling them out and hanging them over this one big rod like on white sheets and hanging them over and then letting them dry and then taking them down and cutting them. And oh, they were with homemade butter. We always had our own milk. And during the war, you know, people didn't have very much food, but we never were without food. We had
What kind of crops were you growing back then? You used to work
crops.
out in the field. What was out in the field?
We used to grow cucumbers, and we sold them to the pickle shop.
Okay.
Jewett's pickles. Yeah, I remember that very well. And I remember even working picking the cucumbers every day. It was hot in the summertime, and we'd pick until about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It was so hot. My mother says, "Okay, you go right down to the river." There was only about 400 or 500 feet from the river. So we used to go down there and cool off in the river and come back and pick some more cucumbers. And then we had cows, we had a dairy, and I had to milk cows before I went to school. I got up 6 o'clock in the morning, and
How many cows were you milking back?
how many?
Now,
I think we had 6 cows. Just enough to sell the milk and the butter. I make our own butter and sell the milk. So I was already getting to be, I was a freshman in high school. And I used to have to get up early in the morning, milk 2 or 3 cows, and hurry in the house and have breakfast and wash up and walk 1 mile to catch the school bus that would drive us 5 miles to the high school. And
where was that, Montague then?
Montague, yeah.
How far did you go in school?
My father made me quit a second year,
Okay.
yeah. He said,
So
"You're
to help
16
on-
years old, go to work."
You said before that you went to work somewhere, was it?
Well, after I quit high school, I did housework.
Okay.
I used to do housework. Then I worked at the Weatherheads farm, at the dining area. Didn't you wait on Ted Williams? Pardon?
Did you wait on Ted Williams?
Oh yes, that's where I worked at Weatherheads farm. We had an ice cream stand on Route 2. It was a main route, and it's Bobby Doer, Ted Williams.
What were they doing out there?
They were with the Civil Air Patrol. They were learning how to fly those little airplanes during the Second World War. And so they were training at the Turner's Falls Airport, and we were only about 3 or 4 miles from the airport, so they used to drive into our place and have lunch, because there weren't too many luncheonettes around, so they used to go in. And that Ted Williams, he was so good looking, and I was 17 years old, and I always wanted to go serve the fellas, So there were 2 girls working in the dining areas, and we said, I'm gonna work the counter today. I said, no, I will. So we argued who's gonna work the counter, who's gonna serve Ted Williams and Bobby Doer.
And when was that then? About 1940 or so, 41?
No, that was 1941.
41.
1941, yeah.
Did you know he was a baseball player at the time?
No.
You didn't?
No. We called them flyboys because they were good-looking guys, and they would come in, and he was already I think he was playing with the Red Sox.
Oh, yeah.
He had to be, because he went into the service. He was inducted into the service. Ted Williams was I think he was in the Air Force.
Well, he was in the service like 4 years. And then he was back again in the Korean War.
Huh.
And Bobby Doer was also in the World War II.
And Carlton Fisk,
Well, he's later though.
later.
He's much later.
Yeah, but this Bobby Doerr and Ted Williams, we knew them very well.
Bobby Doerr and Ted Williams played in the late 30s, early 40s, or 40s and 50s.
Uh-huh. This was in 41.
Because I used to have neighbors that were named Doerr that were related to Bobby Doerr.
It's a
Oh.
small world.
Yeah.
So anyway, we we really enjoyed our work there. And then when the World War broke out, the World War II broke out, December 7th, 1941, I said, oh, here I am. I just turned 18 that summer, and I was still working at the Weatherheads, and I thought, well, maybe I can go to work at the factory. And I wouldn't have to work on tables anymore. So I,
Right, and we have that part of the story in the other video.
Okay.
So,
all right.
did you want to tell us a little bit about Dad's parents or grandparents?
Dad's parents, they were very wealthy. They had a big farm only about a mile and a half from where I lived, and I never knew who they were. But they
Why
were.
wouldn't you know who they were?
But they were our. Well, my mother and father, my mother and her parents lived in their house that they owned. They rented from them. So this is how I knew of them. I didn't know the people, but I knew of them. And this is where my mother was living when she met my father. So somehow we were connected. And then after we
Where did they come from?
where
How did they get here?
his folks came from Lithuania, and his mother and father worked in Leverett and Amherst, and they got together and they married. They up at this big farm in Montague, a mile from where we lived. That's how come I got to know him. And his folks owned a big farm. They had a big dairy. They had something like 30 acres of land. They had a big, beautiful house. And then he was, Jacob Kosmeskis was the one who started the bus route with a horse and a wagon. And he had a special...
That's your grandpa?
In-laws, my in-laws, Alfred's father.
Okay.
Alfred's father. They started the bus route. And so they used to pick us up. We were in the winter time. He had a special wagon made where they had curtains on the side and it was horse drawn. So we used to get on the wagon and go that way. And they ran that for quite a few years until they bought a truck, and they put a body on the truck and they made a school bus out of that. And that Kosmeskis, FM Kosmeskis is still running the buses. Jacob ran the buses. His son Frank Kosmeskis took over. Frank passed away. His daughter Darlene ran the buses, and she still is running the buses. And she now has a fleet of 100 buses plus 4 tour buses.
Hmm.
And she even took the Olympians to British Columbia last year for the Winter Olympics, one of her tour buses. And they're still going strong. They've been in business since the 1930s, yeah. So it's been a good long while. And my grandparents lived in Northfield. I didn't hardly know them at all because we just never bothered too much with them. Lithuanian and Polish somehow didn't get along very well. So therefore, we just kind of kept away.
Did they speak Lithuanian at home, you know?
Oh, yes, the Kosmeskises spoke nothing but Lithuanian. And when their kids went to school, they had a hard time learning English because they didn't know anything until...
Is there a lot of difference between Polish and
Oh,
Lithuanian?
yes. Oh, yes. No.
You'd think it'd be close since they're right close to each
They
other.
weren't entirely different. In fact, um, his mother would always say something about Wanda, you know? And I says, what's Wanda? Is she talking about me, you know, Wanda? And Wanda is water. She's talking about water, and here I thought she was always talking about me. So,
Didn't Grammy speak several languages?
Pardon?
Did Grammy speak a couple languages?
My mother spoke English, yeah, Lithuanian, and Polish and English. Yeah, because she had to. She lived with the her Lithuanian parents, and then when she married my father, she had to learn how to speak Polish. In fact, they spoke both. Even the Kosmeskis spoke Polish, and they just somehow knew both languages. I don't know. They got along very well. So we just had a wonderful time with all these traditions, the Lithuanian tradition, the Polish tradition, the Polish pierogies, and the Lithuanian would make the kugelis, that potato cake, yeah. And come Christmas Eve, the traditions were the same. Christmas Eve, the traditions were the same. We had fish, was a meatless supper, and we'd have fish and borscht. That was Lithuanian, Polish, and Russian. All three of those countries made borscht.
Beets in the made
Beets, yes, beets, yeah. And so that was a lot in common there. The three languages, the three of them. And one of my cousins married a Russian, so they spoke a little Russian too. So there's a combination of Russian, Polish, and Lithuanian, all in the Baltic areas. But we just all got along very well. And then my father was in service. Of course, he got gassed, and when he wasn't well, it was heartbreaking living with him because he was never well. He was drinking heavy. I just forget his problems, and he did have health problems all his life. Died at 66 years of age.
That's pretty old though for that time.
Yeah, my mother died at 72. My grandmother at 96.
Really?
And my grandfather at 72.
What would they have died from? What illness?
My father?
Yeah.
He was gassed. He had lung problems. Then he developed cancer of the stomach. He died from that. My grandfather died from stomach cancer.
What about your mother?
My mother had aneurysm. She got an aneurysm. She was healthy all her life, although she did have one kidney removed when she was about 50 years old. Maybe not quite 50, maybe in her 40s. She lived healthy. She was healthy all her life. And all of us children were healthy. I remember my youngest sister had diphtheria. Then we all had to have shots. This old Dr. Cook would come with his horse and buggy and give us all a shot because we had the diphtheria was prevalent at that time, and we had to have a sign on the door so nobody would enter. A red sign of diphtheria.
You're quarantined?
Yes, quarantine. Yeah.
When do you remember having a car, first car?
First car? My father had the first car in town when he got out of the service.
Really?
Yeah. He used part of his money to, part of his bonus to buy a car, and I got a picture taken of him.
What kind of a car?
It was a 19 Ford Touring. It was open,
Model T?
four-door.
The Model T?
Well, like a Model T, yeah. And my mother sitting in behind the wheel with my father's World War I helmet on. Yeah, that was quite a picture. And my uncle and my aunt sitting in the back seat together. Yeah, that was
Not many people had cars in 1919, did they?
well, he was the first one in Montague to have a car.
It must have been very popular.
Yeah, he was. Then he had another car. I remember he bought a Lafayette, and we always said, "You're laughing yet," because it was such a lemon. But every time I was old enough to get behind the wheel, he'd say, "Wanda, you want to come?" Ma was in the hospital at that time. "Wanda, you want to come visit Ma in the hospital?" I says, "Yes." Of course, he knew I was making good money. I was working at that time. So, and he was drinking. He'd like his beer, and if he didn't have the money, I made more money than he did, by the way. So he'd take me out for a driving lesson. We'd go to Montague City, go to visit Ma in the hospital. He'd sit there 5 minutes. He says, "Oh, okay, let's go." I said, "No, too soon. I want to visit with my mother for at least half an hour." It was killing him to have to sit there, but I did. I was stubborn. So I visited with Ma, and then I would drive to Turner's Falls, the next town over, and we'd have to stop at this package store, his favorite package store, and I'd buy him a 6-pack of beer, and then I would drive home. Those were my driving lessons.
What kind of beer?
I think it was Schlitz.
Okay.
Schlitz. That was popular then. The
You're
brown
talking
bottle
about-
with blue.
When are we talking about now? Back in 1919 again?
No, that's 1942. Because I was working then. I was working
Your mother was sick.
1942.
Your mother was sick then
Yeah, that's when she had the surgery.
for the kidney?
Yeah, for a kidney.
Okay.
So that was in 1942, and then I got married in because I was still working in Miller's Falls Tool Company in 42, and my father let me drive the car. And then I met my husband on the bus stop. He was driving the defense workers, so I started to take lessons from him. I started going Dayton Al was taking driving lessons with him, and before I knew it, I was getting married the following year. In 43, we got married, and I dated him all the 1942, and got married in 1943, and then the family started.
Right.
For November 15, 44, and then April 8th, Beverly 1950, and then Donna November 14, 1951, and then Craig December 2, 1952, Tom January 1954, and then Luann July 5th, 1955. And then Lynn came along in December 14th on 1964. I think that was it. She was our last one.
Okay.
And then I lost 2 brothers. My 3 sisters are still living. We're all healthy and happy.
How old are your sisters?
My oldest sister's 91. I'm 90. And Sophie is 88, and Helen is 82.
Are they all widows then, all?
We're all widows, yes. My 2 brothers died young. My brother Johnny died at 66. He has had amputation on his leg, and they were both drinkers and smokers, my brothers. And I says, we 4 sisters didn't either drink or smoke, and we're still here. So that's good advertising. Don't drink and smoke.
Well, that's true.
Yeah. So we're pretty healthy. In fact, I'm the only one who has not had any health problems. My sisters have had it, all kind of problems. But
So
they're
you're
still
90
here.
and never really been sick then?
Yeah, my oldest sister's had surgery on her legs. She's had other problems. My
But
oldest
you've never
sister.
been real sick.
Pardon?
You've never had any real serious illness.
No, I've never even had surgery of any kind. I'm the only one who hasn't had any surgery. I've only spent 2 days in the hospital in my whole life.
Really?
Yeah, and that was for a bleeding ulcer, and while I was here in Largo, and that was about 10 years ago. I was in the hospital ICU for 2 days. No, ICU one day, and then the next day they put me in the room, and then they shipped me home. And after that, I was okay.
I thought you said you drank some wine.
Well, I wasn't drinking then.
Oh, well you
No,
are.
I just started drinking about a year ago.
2.
Drinking my wine about a year ago. But I used to drink socially. I always did drink socially. When I was young, I used to like rum cokes, and then vodka squirts, and then wine. That's all I ever drank. I didn't drink anything else. But when I was carrying my children, I didn't touch alcohol or anything. They were all healthy babies. Thank God, they're still pretty healthy.
When did you move to Florida?
1996, October 25th, 26th. Because Alfred died exactly 15 years short one day that the doctor told him he'd live if he moved to Florida. He died October 25th, and we moved here October 26th in 1996, 15 years ago.
What did the doctor tell him?
Doctor told him back home he had a bad heart. And he said, if you move to Florida where it's warm, and he says, you'll add 15 years to your life. So that was in March of 1996. I says, well, we're going to pack up and we're going to leave Winchester, New Hampshire, and we're moving to Florida. So we did. We packed everything in the truck and moved down here October 26, 1996. And he died exactly 15 years later, short one day. I said, I'd still like to see that doctor and tell him that how right you were. It added 15 years to his life. But we used to dance every weekend. We belonged to the Polish club in St. Pete. And we used to do the polkas all the time. And sometimes we'd dance in the house. When they put the polkas on, we'd dance at home. We've danced, well, our first date was dancing. So we danced all our life. I think that's what kept us healthy. Good exercise, good food. We didn't eat we never ate junk food. In fact, I've always fed my children good food too. We raised their own gardens, and they didn't have junk food in the house. Never had junk food in the house.
So what kind of food did you eat?
Oh, my brother-in-law used to raise have a beef, so he would every time they would they'd get the kill a cow,
Butcher.
they'd get a butcher, and they'd take it to the butcher shop, and they would get all the cuts of meat and everything. So he'd give me a certain amount of hamburger, and I put it in the freezer, and that lasted almost a year sometimes. So about the only thing we had hamburgers. We had a lot of my own vegetables, potato pancakes, fried fish, potato cakes, and
Cabbage. Cabbage.
oh yeah, cabbage,
Monkeys.
yeah. We had sauerkraut. We used to make sauerkraut with, and then we used to boil potatoes and have potato salad and coleslaw and good vegetables.
Potatoes
A
with
lot of
sour milk?
vegetables. Pardon?
Potatoes with sour milk.
Oh, yes. Oh, that's right, I forgot potatoes with sour milk.
Why would you want sour milk?
We
They
used to
sour it.
We used to
in-
sour the milk,
No.
and it would harden, and then you would just scoop it into a bowl. You put a little salt and pepper over it with a little bit of milk, and then you scoop that with the spoon, and you eat it with boiled potatoes and butter. You know, you dip your potatoes in the butter, and then you'd eat the sour milk. And that was delicious in the summertime. Oh, it was good. And that was dairy. It was good for you. That's an old country dish. That's an old country dish. My mother used to make our own cottage cheese too. So,
No, we're still going strong.
and I still am going strong. No, I feel better now than I did 10 years ago.
Why is that?
I don't know. I don't know.
You exercise every day? You walk at all?
Well, I don't really go outdoors and walk, but I'm always in the house moving around. And when I go grocery shopping, I park far away, and I walk up every aisle in the store. And then I load my own groceries. They always ask me if I want any help. I said, no, thank you, I'll do it. So I do everything myself. And then, I don't know,
Watch
I'm always...
TV?
I don't, not, only in the evening.
What's your favorite TV show?
Oh, good. Well, right now, there isn't much to watch, but I like, everybody likes David, Raymond. That's one, and I like the Golden Girls.
What about the doctors?
Oh, the doctors every day, from 2 to 4. I watch the doctors, and I've been watching to see what they have, what problems I would have, and I check them off. No, I don't have this, I don't have that, I don't have that. There's nothing there that they can tell me about, except they finally got to my neuropathy on my feet. Finally, they had neuropathy, and there's not much you can do for that.
What caused that?
I think it's circulation. Circulation, the feet start going numb, and a lot of the diabetics have that. And so I read where the Lyrica is, the medicine Lyrica is good for that, for your neuropathy in the feet. So I told my doctor about it, and she says, no. She says, if you can live with it the way it is now, she says, I don't want to put you on that, because she says, you could get suicidal things from it, thoughts, and she says, it's not good. She says, it's too much side effects from it. She says, if you can cope with it the way it is. So then I talked to my Paul Kosmeskis, he's a pharmacist, and I told him what problem I have. He says, take all your B vitamins, that'll help you. So I'm on all my B vitamins, and it's keeping me going. And thank God for him, because my doctor didn't tell me. I don't think she really knew. But the vitamins, B vitamins, are keeping me going. It's the only thing. And whole grains, no white potatoes, no white spaghetti, no white bread, none of the whites, it's all whole grain. Brown rice, whole wheat. In fact, I had whole wheat macaroni and cheese tonight, this afternoon. Everything's whole grain.
You're not having any fun at all.
Oh, I'm having fun because I'm here. If I wasn't eating like that, I wouldn't be here. No,
You have some questions.
I eat good food.
They threw them all away.
Throw them all away.
Well, I thought I covered them all, and I realized I didn't. So, is there anything else that you wanted to add to that?
No, not. I can't think of anything right now. It just.
Well,
I'm living here, and I'm happy. And it was difficult being a widow. very, very difficult. I had the first year and a half.
But you're still traveling though, right? You're still doing some traveling?
Yes.
Where did you travel?
Yeah.
Where did you go? Where did you go? Last summer?
Last summer, yeah, I went up north. In fact, the summer before, I spent 5 months up north, and then in 2012, from June until October, and this last summer, from July, the middle of July until the middle of September, I spent 2 weeks in Georgia, and I had a blast with all the children there, and visited botanical gardens, and we did a lot of walking, did a lot of things, and then from there we let's see, that was just, yeah, then Luann drove me to Atlanta airport in what day was that? Oh, I think the last day in August, I think. No, last day in July. Last day in July, yeah. Last day of July. She drove me to Atlanta, and I boarded the plane in Atlanta, and I flew to Boston, and from Boston, from Logan Airport, Craig picked me up and drove me to Irving to his house, and I stayed there until September 12th, and I just had a ball. I went to the church picnic, and I won a lot of prizes at the church picnic, and I danced and met some old friends, and spent a lot of every day with my relatives and friends, and I drove the car everywhere. Still driving. I'm having a ball. I
Still
love
go to
life.
church every week?
Pardon me?
Still go to church every week?
Oh, yes, yes. I went this morning. I prayed for all of you.
Thank you.
Yes, I
Well,
did.
maybe we need it.
Yes, everybody needs it.
All right, I'm gonna stop this right now because I think my battery's about